She said there was a smell of cotton candy in the room. I nodded as tears began to stream down my face. And then a boy of 7, and then a boy of 12, and then a girl of 11. Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. I'm 𝘠𝘳𝘓𝘓. Happy Spooky Month. So if you're new here and you're like, what's happening? It's Spooky Month, so we're doing spooky things, and today we're gonna be reading some creepypastas. Now, I've read creepypastas on this channel before. I've read quite a few, but I've always read, like, really classic ones. So today I wanted to mix things up for the spooky season. And I want to read some newer creepypastas. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing today, baby boy. So everyone, I want you to grab your snacks, grab your drinks, settle in, and let's just dive right in with the first story. This one is called Wish Upon a Star by Faelore. I'm not sure how you say your name, my apologies. And this was written September 21st, 2024, so this is a new one. Let me just get comfortable here. I had always loved the night sky, be it for the twinkling light of the stars, the clever smile of the crescent moon, or that every night my mother would tell me stories as we gazed upon them together. She would bundle me up in my favorite blue blanket, only to hold me hostage, smothering me with kisses and tickling my stomach until I nearly cried tears of laughter. We would sit together for what felt like hours as she spun her tales, retold stories she had been told by her own mother. Even in old age, she uses the same unserious voices she had on those nights so long ago. This is pure and wholesome. It was on a night just like those nights before that my mother had spoken of wishing stars. With her arm stretched towards the sky, she pointed to the plethora of stars, explaining that there were few that watched us from the vast darkness of the night. Watching and listening for children pure of heart, she said that if you listen closely, you could hear them giggling at one another as we dream of our innermost desires and fantasies. It was then that we saw it. Only for a brief moment did it leave its trail of starlight, but long enough that I was able to squeeze my eyes tightly shut and make my wish. I wished for a friend. After we had finished our nightly procrastination, our stories concluded and our laughter subsided. She lifted me up in one swift swoop, at which I giggled and melted into her embrace. Just before my body met with the bed, she would gently drop me onto the mattress, toppling over me, claiming I was so much more comfortable than any mattress she had used. Dragging out the vowel as I attempted to shove her off me, I groaned, "Mom, you have your own bed, not me." She chuckled as she brought her face to my own, first to rub her nose to mine, only to kiss my forehead as she tucked me in. Before I could even think to run it away, she gave me that look, the "Are you really gonna wipe away my love for you" look. I simply shook my head as I covered the lower half of my face with the blanket to hide my smile. "I love you," I whispered through the fabric. Leaning against the frame of my door, she returned the smile I tried so hard to hide. "I love you most." My eyelids were so heavy, I swear I had already fallen asleep before she turned off the lights and shut the door. Something bad is coming. I can tell. This is too wholesome. My eyes fluttered open, my eyelids still heavy. I hadn't been asleep very long. My stomach churned as the same sound that had woken me up resumed. A low, uncanny whispering, followed by the prolonged tapping of glass. Tap, tap. My body went stiff as the final tap had become a deafening sound that I could only describe as similar to nails on a chalkboard. I'm surprised I made it out of my bed with my legs giving out. My body trembled with every step. The whispering grew louder as I hesitantly shifted towards the windowsill. My palms felt clammy as they gripped onto the thick fabric of my curtains. A light shone through each crease. Every entrance it could seep through, it had done so. My heart nearly left my chest. It had been beating so harshly as the coldness of the air nipped at my skin. It hadn't been so cold earlier. Had it? My mind raced with questions, my breath rigid and my mouth dry. As if to wake me once more, a single tap echoed against the walls of my bedroom. Why did I open the curtains? Why hadn't I simply fallen back to sleep when I had first woken up? Questions I ponder even now. The curiosity of a child is not so easily tainted, not even when met with an unsettling fear of the unknown. Swallowing that very fear, I had nearly taken down the curtains as I ripped them open, unprepared for what I may have found, but so eager, so determined to vanquish whatever may be waiting for me. There, standing in the moonlight, was a creature unlike anything I had ever seen. Its skin was void of color, an empty blackness that blended into the darkness of the night, sickly thin and sleek beneath the light. Each and every part of its body seemed disproportionate and disfigured, from its neck to its spindly limbs that seemed to stretch forever. But the most terrifying part was its face, or rather where its face should have been. What had been instead was unmistakably a star. Though not like any star I had seen while my mother told her stories. No, this star was grim and grotesque. Each edge was uneven and sharp, its light felt sinister as it gave an unsettling cold. What would be its face consisted of two unblinking eyes, a sharp-pointed nose, and a perverse smile that had stretched to be unnaturally wide, almost as if splitting the star-like head into two. Its lips were thin and cracked, revealing uneven and jagged teeth. My lips parted as if to scream, but no sound came out. My body betrayed me as it fell to the once comforting carpet on my floor. Each fiber had felt like needles to the touch against my near-frozen skin. Oh, how I wanted to look away, to scream and to cry, and yet all I could do was look. I had never known a smile that could invoke such raw terror as this, nor eyes so eerie. The creature moved closer, its limbs bending and twisting in unnatural ways. I watched unmoving as the darkness rippled around its arm that had reached for the window, teasingly dragging its fingertips along the pane before the needle-like claws had wedged it open. It whispered like the rustling of leaves. I felt all the warmth leave my body as it crept closer. I shook my head, dragging my body away from the window, yet the creature did not stop. My voice had yet to return, caught in the back of my throat. The hairs of my arms stood up tall as goosebumps ran along my skin. It had climbed through the window, its body and limbs stretching and contorting to fit through and into such a small space. Its face shone brighter to fill the darkness of the room. Don't be afraid, little one. The stinging chill of its presence settled, and its smile seemingly softened. You wished for a friend. Did you know it? I nodded as tears began to stream down my face. This wasn't what I had asked for. I wished for a friend, not a monster. The creature lifted a single claw to my cheek, wiping away my tears while staring down upon me with that wicked smile. Stretching its neck over my fear-stricken body, I felt myself being effortlessly lifted. It placed me back in bed, petting my hair with that very same claw before retreating to the foot of my bed. You're not French. Friends do not make friends cry. And we shall be friends for a long time. That night I had closed my eyes, hoping for it all to be but a dream. A horrible dream! But each and every night since, I felt its gaze, its very presence as its smile widened. Never once did it speak, but it watched as I slept, as I dreamt and grew. It would stare as I grew distant from my mother, who had once told me stories that her mother had once told her. Never again would I wish upon a star, for the friend I've been given reminds me of what happens when I do. I just realized there's a copyright statement. I don't know if I'm allowed to read the story now. I've never seen that warning before. So our next one is Mr. Smile, written by Alice Thompson. It was in early November of 1997 that a series of very strange sessions led to a child psychologist in Maine to contact the authorities. It began when a patient of his began to tell him about one of their friends. The friend being imaginary as far as both the psychiatrist and the boy's parents were concerned. He called him Mr. Smile and would talk about him at great length during some sessions. The boy called him Mr. Smile both because he would always be smiling and because when he was around, the boy said everything felt happy. He said there was a feeling of everything being okay. The boy in question was being treated for serious issues to do with anger and depression, but when Mr. Smile was around, he said that all the anger and sadness seemed to just disappear. He said that Mr. Smile wouldn't speak, but rather just stand there at the foot of his bed. He smelled like candy floss, and just by being there, he made the boy feel safe and calm. The psychiatrist assumed this imaginary friend was some sort of coping mechanism the boy had developed to deal with the problems at home that led to his violent temper, and thought nothing much of it. Until another patient, a girl about 9 years old, also began talking about her imaginary friend. Mr. Smile, and then a boy of 7, and then a boy of 12, and then a girl of 11. All in all, close to 15 separate patients began to talk to him about Mr. Smile. The first few he'd put down to coincidence. After all, many children have imaginary friends, and the name and description of Mr. Smile were just generic enough that it didn't concern him too much at first. But as more and more of his patients told him about Mr. Smile, he began to grow concerned. He asked for more details. Every single one of them described him in the same way, using the exact same words. Now, there was no way that all these children could be in contact with each other. 5 of them, for instance, were currently being homeschooled, and according to their parents when he spoke to them, never really even left the house, except when it was to accompany them on shopping trips and the like. There was no way that every single one of these kids could have rehearsed or prepared their statements together, which led him to a deeply disturbing conclusion. He spoke privately with each one of the children's parents, one at a time. He avoided disclosing too much information, but told them that something troubling had cropped up in multiple sessions with various patients, and that he believed that there was a chance their child was at risk. He asked for the parents' permission to discuss matters with the authorities, and the parents gave their consent, provided they were kept in the loop as to what was going on. And so, over the course of the next week, the police came and talked to the children about their friend. They asked for details about his parents, which they couldn't seem to describe apart from the smile, that he was not like them, how he got into their house, anything he said or did while he was there. Because by this point, the psychiatrist, the parents, and the police were all convinced that Mr. Smile was quite real and quite dangerous. The authorities had checked to make sure there were no known predators living in the area, which they had confirmed was not the case. But it was quite clear that whoever this Mr. Smile was, he was a real person who had been sneaking into the homes of these children at night. None of the children claimed to know how he got in. They said they would just wake up and he'd be there at the foot of their bed. Sometimes they said he would be singing something, but not in English. It sounded like a lullaby, they said. It made them feel safe. Finally, the children were asked to draw Mr. Smile, as they couldn't put into words how he looked. Each and every one of the children picked up a red crayon and proceeded to color in the entire page until it was just a rectangle of red. When asked about this, they insisted they had drawn Mr. Smile. When asked where his head, arms, and legs were, they would insist that they had drawn those. They claimed that they had drawn a perfect picture of the man at the foot of their bed, and when they were told that they had simply colored in the page and had not drawn anything at all, they became deeply angry, feeling that they were accused of lying and insisting that what they had drawn was a picture of the man they had seen. Acting more on a hunch than anything else, the psychiatrist decided to show one of them the colored-in rectangles to the various children and asked them what it was. Each and every one of them, with no knowledge of what the picture was supposed to be or who had drawn it, and with no knowledge that the other children that had been spoken to about the subject even existed, replied that it was a picture of Mr. Smile. Cameras and baby monitors were placed in the children's rooms so that they could be monitored. Many of the parents simply stopped sleeping altogether, staying up all night staring at the screens that displayed where their children slept. At no point did anyone enter or exit the bedrooms. No sound except for them snoring or occasionally talking in their sleep were heard over the baby monitors. There was no sign of Mr. Smile. After almost 2 weeks of this, many of them began to doubt that Mr. Smile ever existed. Other psychiatrists have since put the whole thing down to some strange shared delusion that, while it couldn't be explained, yet did not have any basis in reality. Some suggested that maybe this whole Mr. Smile thing had its basis in a TV show or film that the children had all watched, leading them all to dream of something similar. One of the boys went missing. The camera in his room had gone dead around 2 in the morning. His mother had run to check in on him, only to find his room empty. It had literally taken her less than a minute to run to his room. There was no possible way for him to leave or be taken and be out of her sight in the time that it took her to leave her bedroom and run towards his, but he was gone. She said there was a smell of cotton candy in the room. The search for the boy turned up nothing. No one had seen anything strange or unusual around the home before or during the disappearance, and no trace of him was ever found. It was less than a week later that one of the girls who had spoken of Mr. Smile vanished as well. Then another one of the boys. One by one, each of them began to disappear until only 4 remained. The 4 remaining children began to talk about how Mr. Smile and his friends were going to take them away soon. When asked about these friends, they talked about how Mr. Smile lived with the other smiling men in the happy place and that he would take them there soon. They said that there were lots of people there already and that in the happy place, everything was beautiful. They said that they knew about it because Mr. Smile talked to them in their heads because he couldn't couldn't talk like other people did, and he would show them pictures in their heads of the place that they were going. Things began to get increasingly disturbing. After a few weeks, the children began complaining of headaches and nausea. Their schools reported that they had begun to suffer hallucinations, and 2 of them started complaining that they didn't like the place that Mr. Smile was showing them anymore. One began screaming for half an hour, acting as if they were having a fit and screaming for the colors to stop, that the colors were horrible and that they needed them to go away. One of the children claimed that Mr. Smile was talking to them in their head all the time now and was telling them things. Terrible things. But that they couldn't talk about it. That they mustn't, because then their parents would know about the terrible things too. The psychiatrist asked them to write down what Mr. Smile was saying, promising that he would show it to no one, managing to gain the trust of one of the boys enough that he agreed. The contents of the book are known only to him and the authorities, but whenever anyone involved has been asked about it, they get real quiet and quickly find an excuse to change the subject. The children stopped sleeping. Footage from the security camera showed them sitting bolt upright, their eyes unblinking, just staring at the wall without moving or making a sound. Sedatives did nothing. One of the girls began cutting strange circular marks into her skin, while 2 of the boys ceased communicating in English altogether. The language they spoke was never identified, and despite numerous people being asked to listen to them, they could not translate what they were saying. By the start of 1999, all 4 children had vanished into thin air. There was no trace of who took them. Searches have turned up nothing to this day, with no indication of where they are, or if they're even dead or alive. No suspects have ever been found either. All 4 of them appear to simply vanish into thin air, much like the others, all of whom remain missing. Their disappearance is unexplained. Disappointing God. I don't get it. I think it's good, I just don't really understand. Okay, so that was a lot of stories. I started reading some and stopped reading a lot, so it's more than you think. So that's where we're going to cut it off for the night. Hopefully everybody enjoyed just a little something for the spooky season we're in. Hopefully nobody's feeling scared, and Creepypasta, please do not sue me. I will give everybody credit. So thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed, hopefully you're not too creeped out, and hopefully I will see you all here next time.